Hi, everyone. It's Denise Brown from the Caregiving Years Training Academy. In the fall of 1994, I had an idea. I wanted to launch a print publication for those who care for a family member. I wanted it to feel like a support group that arrived in that family caregiver's house, that they didn't have to worry about going out to connect to support and to read stories of others in a similar situation. And at the time, I was new to a marketplace that had yet really been well defined. So I had lots of opportunities in terms of what I named the newsletter. So I thought for a minute about caregiver and I thought, well, we don't call ourselves caregivers, so I called it caregiving. And then when I marketed it, I talked about it as a newsletter for those who care for and worry about a family member. And I was very intentional about adding that emotion, worry, to the descriptor. Caregiving is an emotional experience. It's not about what we do, it's about how we feel during our caregiving experience. So I get frustrated when there's a conversation about family caregivers don't self identify because we're talking about the wrong problem. Rather than talking about how do we support those who are in the worst times of their lives, who are stressed out and worried and without enough help and support, how do we help them? The conversation instead is, oh my gosh, but they don't self identify. That makes me crazy because we don't call ourselves a caregiver, but we know how we're feeling. We identify with the emotions. If you want to reach those who are caring for a family member, talk about the emotions of the experience. We shouldn't be having this conversation about family caregivers don't self identify anymore. The conversation started about 20 years ago, and I've been asking everyone to stop that conversation for the past 20 years. It's not about what we do, it's not about what we call ourselves, it's about how we feel during our caregiving experience. Earlier this month, I led a certified caregiving facilitator training. I always like to make sure it was consultant facilitator, it was facilitator, and it's the training I developed for support group leaders. I was leading a training with those who work with grandparents raising grandchildren. So they wanted to start a support group for grandparents. They are familiar with family caregiving issues. They know what a family caregiver is. They are aware of the definition of family caregiver. So at the beginning of our training, the program participants described their goals in the training and then their personal caregiving experiences. And one of the program participants said, I cared for my grandmother. I used to care for my mother, but she's stable now. She has mental health issues. So I asked her, how often do you worry about your mom? She said, I worry every day. And I said, well, you're a family caregiver. And just that insight changed her entire demeanor. It was like she had some stress lifted off her shoulders. Of course, she worries about her mom every day. Anyone in a caregiving experience knows that stability is temporary. Regardless of what the carry situation is, we know stability is not permanent. We're always waiting for that other shoe to fall. We worry. That's our experience in caregiving. So when you want to reach those who are caring for a family member, talk about their emotions and let's really focus on how to better support them. Let's not worry about what they call themselves because they're not going to call themselves a family caregiver. And that's okay. I'm a family caregiver. I don't call myself a family caregiver, but I talk about how much I worry and how stressed out I am and how overwhelmed I sometimes feel. That's the identifying factors of a caregiving experience. Talk about their emotions. Just mention one other thing. I was in a group meeting a couple weeks ago, and it was with organizations who reach family caregivers. And we talked about the definition of caregiving and how to reach them. And I said, well, let's just talk about worrying about a family member. And one of the attendees who serves family caregivers in her community said, oh my gosh, that's a completely different definition than what we go by. But it's the definition that people relate to. It's about how we feel during our caregiving experience. That's what defines us. Regardless of what we do, it's about how we feel. That's what caregiving is about. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Denise Brown. Take care.